everyone and welcome back to my channel Beth Chats Books. Now today's video is going to be a tag video. So the tag I'm going to do today is the mid-year check-in tag, which was created by Dane from Dane Reads and Harriet Rose. And I was tagged in this by two people. I was tagged in this by Pip Reads and Jasmine's Reads. So I will link all of those channels down below and their version of the tag so that you can go and check that out at your own free will. But I've decided that because this is kind of a bit of a check-in with my channel through this tag, I am going to do one other video that's going to be a reflective video on my year on BookTube, and I've decided to use that video as half of it will be about the highlights of my year on BookTube and then some of the things that I want to improve on, and then the second half of the video will be looking back on a few of my videos over the year and making some comments on what I enjoyed about them and what I think I can improve on. So I will be doing that very soon. I just have to go through my list of my highlights and go through the videos that I want to show to you guys. So that will be coming up soon, but this kind of deals with the stats and a bit more of a review of my year as a whole through progression. So I think that between this tag and that, I'll have ticked off doing a reflective video for a year on BookTube. So without further ado, let's just get straight into this tag. So question number one is, how many books have you read so far this year? So I checked my Goodreads before I did this video and I'm currently on 41 out of 80 books. Now I think picking 80 books for a year was quite ambitious in the first place. I should have probably gone for around 60, but considering we're in July now and that will last till December, maybe if I push myself in these next couple of months I can get to around 80. I'm kind of halfway now, so I'm feeling fairly optimistic about hitting that target, but not exceedingly optimistic. I would have to put a lot of work in from now till then to achieve that. But there we are, that's as many as I've read. I've watched a lot of these tags from other people recently and they are trouncing me. Most people are around 60 at the moment, so bad Beth, but I'm trying as best as I can. So there's that. And then question number two, what's your favourite book so far this year? So I put Perfume by Patrick Suskind because that book blew me away. It gave me a lot of nostalgia for the Virgin Suicides, which I pretty much mention on nearly every video. But that was my all-time favourite book so far that I've read through BookTube. And this book allowed me to have some kind of feeling of excitement and that anticipation that I felt with reading the Virgin Suicides. It's very dark. There are a few bits in the book that kind of get dragged out a little bit, but when it gets to the meat of the story and all the kind of gory dark bits, I actually really revelled in it, enjoyed it. I loved that visceral theme throughout the book of smell and how the main character has such strong power of scent and how that impacts upon the book. I really liked that it was multi-layered as well. I really enjoyed that book. And then number three, what's your most disappointing book so far this year? I've put down for this one Barkskins by Annie Proulx. Now the reason I put this one is because I was really anticipating to enjoy it, and the first 200 pages of that book I ended up loving. I really liked the premise, where it was going. I really enjoyed the characters. However, it was really drawn out, and so I ultimately DNF'd it after about 400 pages because it goes through the generations a bit like Homegoing by Yaa Nassi, but without that excitement and that connection to the characters. They stretched out the generations for far too long, so it got to a point where I'd lost track of who this person was within the generations. Their stories were getting very watered down. The very beginning of the book was about descendants from France coming over to Canada and then having their children here, and about the development of the identity of Canada as a place and how the natural resources in Canada impacted upon the British and the French coming over to try and colonise these areas. And that bit was really interesting, but then as it went further and further and further along the generations, it kind of missed for me the point of what I wanted, which was that interesting historical precipice moment, and instead it was overshadowed by just washing down the storylines, and those bits didn't interest me. So I was very disappointed because I was expecting better from the first 200 pages. And then number four, what genre have you read most this year? So I have put literary fiction because ultimately, looking through my Goodreads, most of it has been literary fiction. There's been some historical fiction. There has been a few short stories, not very much poetry unfortunately. There's only been about one poetry collection. So far that's my main genre, and I think literary fiction is a very broad genre anyway, so I haven't found that it's affected my reading at all. I've read what I've wanted to, and it just so happens that a lot of it's been in that category. And then number 5, name a favourite newly discovered author. So after I've recently finished her book, I'm going to pick Han Kang because I really enjoyed The Vegetarian. A lot of people have told me that she's got some very interesting books. I know The White Book, I believe, is a very short story that also had been nominated for the Man Booker Prize this year, I believe. And so a lot of people said that that's really good, very short, very easy to read, so it's already made me want to discover all the other books and pieces of literature that she's produced, so I'll have to go with her. Then number 6, name the most surprisingly good book you've read. So I put Things We Nearly Knew by Jim Powell. I requested this from Pam Macmillan this year, and I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did because it wasn't very high on the radar. I hadn't heard other people discuss that they wanted to review this book or that they'd heard about it on BookTube. And it really satisfied the part of me that really enjoyed Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates. It's very much about the relationship, and it's not necessarily in the same historical context as Revolutionary Road because that's about the 1950s and this is more set in the modern period. But it's about the couple's dynamics and the secrets and how that kind of affects their relationship because their skeletons come out of the closet and they have to confront them. And I really like that dynamic of a marriage having some complicated issues. That's what I really enjoyed in Revolutionary Road. And it really satisfied that for me, and I really connected with the characters. And I was surprised because I ended up giving it 5 stars because I really was infatuated with the story long after it finished. So I was really happy with that. It really did surprise me. And then number 7, name your favourite and most anticipated 2018 release. So I've put White Houses by Amy Bloom. I haven't got around to reading it. I know it was released in February, but this is about Eleanor Roosevelt during the time when Roosevelt's in office. A female journalist or reporter comes to talk about Roosevelt and ends up having a romance with Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, I think the premise just sounds so interesting. I don't know much about the Roosevelt government, so I thought that it would be quite interesting to read a little bit of context about that. But this LGBT love story or romance or lust, whatever you want to call it, has fascinated me since I heard it was mentioned on Guardian. On one of their podcasts, the two presenters were talking about what they had been reading recently, and it's really got into my head and made me fascinated to get to that story. So it's definitely on my want to read list on Goodreads, and I'm hoping that at some point I can get round to reading it. Then number 8, what's your next big priority for your reading? So I've put here more diversity. I would like to read a lot more translated fiction because since I've read Han Kang and I read Lullaby that was translated from the French by Leila Slimani, really think there's a lot to give with translated fiction. I know Shazza from Hooked on Books raves about translated fiction, and I really want to give that a go from a lot more far-flung corners of the world. And I would love to read more diversity in terms of more short stories, more poetry, different genres that I'm used to. I'm quite comfortable in my literary fiction sphere, but maybe trying out more fantasy, more magical realism. I mentioned on a previous video that I would really like to discover magical realism that I enjoy. I just want to kind of shake it up with my reading. And then number 9, what's been your bookish highlight? So I have put here using the platform to talk about more important issues, and this is something that I want to do going forward. I am passionate about a lot of different things, and I'm passionate about people and helping and that nurturing part of me, and I don't think always through my BookTube channel I've allowed part of my personality to shine through. Some of my favourite videos I've ever done was my video on Camp Merrywood and about how important that camp experience was to me and how important that camp was. So that was a camp for physically disabled children in Canada that I spent 2 consecutive summers over there working for them. And I also did a video on male suicide, Project 84, that was very prominent in the last year or so. This Morning, a British breakfast programme, helped that project, and since then got many awards because it was raising the issue of male suicide. And basically I really like the idea of using this platform to talk about more issues that are very important and dear to me and that I would like to raise awareness or to support. And the booktube community is so supportive that I really feel it's easy, and there's such a great response from the booktube community when we do talk about these more important issues. I know a lot of people on Twitter through the booktube community have often tweeted and made reference to mental health issues that they've been going through. I know there's a few booktubers who have physical disabilities and issues that have hindered them from work or from their day-to-day lives. And I think it's so important that they've been so vocal and honest about their journey. So I think it is really important that going forward I attempt to do more important issue videos, which I feel passionate about. And then number 10, who do you tag? So I'm just going to tag these people. If you've already been tagged before, just don't worry about it, just ignore this and get round to doing the video when you want to. But these are a few people I'd love to see their version of this tag. So the people I'm going to tag is Key Reads, Mark Nash, MCS Books, Hooked on Books and Beautiful Pages, because I tried to tag a lot more people but I realised that this is a hot tag at the moment and basically everyone's done it. So I was hoping that you guys haven't done it, but if you have, do not worry about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you very soon with a brand new video. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to be alerted for when my future videos come out. And I'll be back very soon. Bye now.